Everyone experiences problems, whether it's career, friendships, relationships. So many problems are all around us all the time. When the problem is really big and challenging, there's usually this moment where we feel like it's impossible to come up with a good solution. Sometimes we give up and we leave this problem be. Sometimes we procrastinate and we just forget about it. And sometimes we face it head on and try to come up with creative solutions. At this moment, we're facing a different challenge, which is how to get out of our mind, find a new perspective, and come up with a different solution that we'll be content with. And that's the exact skill I developed after solving more than 1,000 puzzles. Welcome back, my name is Greg, and today I will talk about the benefits of solving puzzles, whether it's Sudokus, mechanical puzzles, or any other kind of puzzle, and how it improved my own life and brain. I'm speaking as an individual from my own experience. I'm in no way a certified person to talk about this, just a regular guy who solved a lot of puzzles in his life. A little bit about myself. I'm an MBA in business and administration, and I teach content creation and create content for a living. And as a real life example, on a daily basis, I work with clients that are very different people, and every one of these clients has a different business. Every time a client comes up to me and said, "Hey Greg, I have this problem," then we need to come up together with a new solution that they didn't know before and didn't understand before, and then to execute this. So this skill is accompanying me every single day in my day job and every single day in everything else. And if you think about it, you probably solved at least one problem today, or had at least one problem that you had to solve and didn't. And if you think about it, every single day you are facing new problems. If you have a lot of problems, you probably are trying new stuff. And that means that if I want to progress through these new problems that arise every single day, I need to learn to solve them efficiently. And that's where puzzles come into the picture. And these things, although it's a hobby and obviously it shouldn't replace any kind of different studying, the benefits from solving them are not less than reading books. And everyone says how important it is to read books or go to the gym or learn a new language. Solving puzzles is a training by itself, and instead of building up your muscles, it builds up your brain. And here are some really interesting examples of skills that I developed thanks to solving more than 1,000 puzzles. And if any of you guys solved a lot of puzzles in your life before, feel free to also drop down your own experience. Most of the time, puzzles are quite frustrating. When we try them at first, they seem impossible to solve, and our brain tricks us into thinking things that aren't necessarily true. This sometimes leads to a lot of trial and error. But every single time when I decided that I want to invest thought and time into solving the puzzle, in the end, I found the solution to the puzzle. How does this happen, you say? Every time you're facing a problem, there's definitely a solution to it. You just need to invest time and energy into it. And this mindset of having a problem that is always solvable, no matter how impossible it is, leads to develop a persistent and perseverant nature of character. Anything I do today, if it seems impossible and really hard, I know that the more I invest time and thought into it and energy, I will just get closer and closer to a breakthrough. And it's like this in any area of life. Try to think about a time where you were really stressed and you had to do something really important, but it was pretty complicated, and because of the stress you tried to rush it. And instead of it being solved faster and the problem being behind you faster, it all fell apart and you felt miserable. It happens to all of us, and sometimes we think that doing something faster will make it go away faster, but in more complicated problems, sometimes going slower works better. And that seems really weird, right? But instead, when you go slower, you have more time to process all the information and think about creative solutions. That's how we do it in puzzles as well. Whenever I get stuck in a puzzle that is really complicated to grasp, sometimes just putting it aside, thinking about it, drawing some sketches helps solve it faster than by trying and force it through as fast as possible with only the puzzle in front of me. Another cool thing is the mindset shift. Did you ever have a time where you had a problem and you said, "Oh man, I can't do it. There is no way I can do it." And what happened next? you didn't solve it, right? Because after we think, yeah, that's impossible, then our mind kind of like tricks us into thinking it's impossible and stops looking for solutions. Try to think about another time where you had a problem and it was really difficult, but you said, I can do it, I will solve this. And after you did this, remember how you actually built the plan on the go and you found the solution in the end. Maybe it took some time, maybe it was really frustrating, but you found the solution. I believe this mindset shift from this is really hard to solve, I can't do it, to this is really hard to solve and I'm excited for the challenge is a really big skill. Being able to shift the mindset from this impossible mindset to anything can be achieved mindset helps us achieve really great goals even when we feel like they're really hard. This yes can do mindset really helped me personally achieve really big things that otherwise I couldn't have achieved. So this is a real thing that I'm sure will keep helping me in anything I do in my life. Remember a time where you had a problem again and you didn't know what to do and you resorted to all the books and quotes and knowledge that you had and experience that you had, but you just didn't have the tools to solve this. And you were left with this problem and it was really frustrating, but then you talked to a person who's really good at solving problems like these. Whether he's experienced or he does it for a living or he dealt with this before. And then he gave you a really nice insight that changed your perspective. And this perspective change now suddenly let you look at the problem, the same exact problem, and see it in a different light, which then helped you realize the new path that you need to take from the problem to the solution. This change of perspective can be trained by solving puzzles, because when we are trapped into the impossibility trap of a puzzle, we're looking at it from one perspective. But to solve the puzzle after it seems impossible, you must get out of this trap by changing your own perspective. Being able to understand that you're in a trap, in a mind trap, a mental trap, and switch your own perspective without anyone giving you a hint is such a big skill that can actually change your life. I know it sounds big, but that's how it is. Sometimes we look at something and it just seems like no matter what we do, it cannot be solved. And one simple aha moment, and suddenly it's achievable, and suddenly we're like, oh my god, how did I not think about this before? And you can develop this switch by solving puzzles, which is insane. But it needs a lot of self-understanding and self-feeling. So when I was a child, I was a really logical kind of person. Throughout the years, I developed this more emotional personality. After I met a lot of different people of different places, different countries, different jobs, I learned to be more empathetic and sensitive, and this allowed me to be more sensitive to myself. And when you solve a puzzle or any problem in life, for example, you are going to be sometimes thrown away. You're gonna be like scattered around, confused, and you won't know what to do next. And it feels really bad knowing that you're in such a bad position and there's this huge problem that you need to solve. But when you are mindful to yourself and you pay attention to how you sense the world and what feelings arise while doing something, then you're able to look at it from this emotional perspective, knowing which emotion arises, and understand that you are acting from this emotion right now. And after you understand this, sometimes when we are angry, for example, and we face a challenge or a problem, we look at it entirely different, as if we approached it calmly. When you solve a puzzle and you get frustrated or stressed, or you feel like you are stupid, and that happens every single time. If you solve your first few puzzles, you will feel stupid because that's what the designer wants you to feel. Only after you understand that this is a feeling that you're experiencing right now, and you can choose whether to go with this feeling and give up, or to understand that this is the feeling I feel right now and try to find a path through this using this feeling, not telling yourself I need this feeling to go away, but embracing it and acting from understanding what you feel right now. This helps you get to the next level and solve the puzzle finally, because you understand what you're experiencing, you sense the puzzle, and you can come up with a good solution. And another really important thing here is that to solve a puzzle really well, you need to use your senses. You need to use your hearing skills, look at the puzzle and try to figure out if there's something you missed visually. And to connect all the dots well, you need to really let go of anything, understand and accept whatever it is that you face, and just be in it. And this pure acceptance, this pure focus on what lies in front of you improves so many different skills in your life. Imagine being able to see any situation as is, without this perspective of an emotion, an outside emotion that kind of blurs reality, right? Only when you're able to be completely focused on what's in front of you, then you're able to collect the right information, which then helps you solve the problems in the right way. And that's for the mindfulness part of solving puzzles. When you're stuck with a recurring problem in your life that comes again and again and again, you solve it once, next month it appears in a different way. In 3 months, you experience something and this problem arises again, and it happens once in a while again and again and again. Sometimes the solution lies not in solving the problem, but to solve the root of the problem. In puzzles, we learn that sometimes to solve a puzzle, you need to clear your assumptions. Because sometimes we get into traps because we assume something unknowingly. We think that something is true without even questioning it. And when we start understanding our own assumptions, then suddenly when we see that we are looking at the situation from our own perspective, not knowing that is our unique perspective thanks to these assumptions that hold us behind. I learned this about myself in therapy, but it's also possible to use this skill in problem solving to understand what assumptions am I making right now. And maybe I'm mistaken, maybe I'm doing something that's not right. But I'm believing that it's right. Not only I'm believing, I'm so confident that it's true that I don't even ask this question. Which leads me to the next thing, which is asking questions. Every time you get to a wall of solving any problem whatsoever, there's this small little second where you can say, I'm done, I don't know, I'm over. Or you can say, okay, I can't do this. Why is this happening? What happens right now that I don't understand? Did I miss anything? Maybe there's information I didn't gather. Maybe I didn't explore this area enough. Asking these questions helps you get out of your own assumptions. And the key to understanding your own assumptions is to ask questions that check if there's assumptions in the first place. Do I assume anything right now? Maybe I need to change my assumption. What are the assumptions I am tackling this with? Because sometimes giving away your assumption, just letting it go, can solve a puzzle. Sometimes you think that you know what you have to do, and the question is exactly not that. Sometimes you need to say, okay, I think I know what I'm doing, but maybe I'm completely and utterly wrong. And that's why I'm experiencing this problem time after time. And this is why I need to question my own assumptions and my own sense and perception of reality, because maybe I'm assuming something that blocks my way, that blocks my sight. And that's such an interesting thing to notice. Puzzle solving helps you notice these assumptions because some puzzles cannot be solved without changing your assumptions from the core, and this requires a lot of personal understanding and sensitivity to your own self, and that is so valuable nowadays because everything outside tries to take our own sense of self. A lot of distractions and social media and people calling whatever they want, and there's so many things that can deny us of our own senses, and this is so valuable thanks to it. So another really cool tool I have learned and I implement whenever I see a goal that's really difficult to achieve and I'm not sure what are the steps to get to this goal. For example, I'm selling an online product, or I want to meet this new girl, or I want to move to a new bigger apartment and I need to make more money. Sometimes it feels impossible to do it because we don't know what will be the way to this. This is when reverse engineering comes into play. Reverse engineering is when you see the goal and instead of thinking, okay, what is step one, you will say, okay, what is the last step that will bring me towards this destination I want to arrive at? And after you find the last step, you will find then the step before last, and before last, and before last, and you do this until you reverse all the way to step number 1. Then you are left with a map, a step-by-step guide to guide you towards your goal. It's that simple. It's really difficult to use this, but this tool helps solve any kind of problem you may experience that you don't know the way to. And sometimes this reverse engineering process requires you some external aid. Sometimes you need to ask people. But understanding that you can reverse engineer your way back, you can then choose someone that already got to this destination and ask him, like, man, what's the last thing you did to help you get to this destination? Okay, and what before and before? And then using other people's experiences that already got to the place we want to get to, we can progress to our own goals faster. And in life, it's so much more complicated than puzzles, which is funny because puzzles should be really impossible. Well, life is much more difficult and complicated than puzzles, in my opinion. But this is a really interesting tool that you can use. Everyone has something they're really good at. And when you're good at something, then you're confident that you know a lot about it. There's something that happened to me after I started doing a certain thing. So in my day job, I teach creators to make content, especially on social media when they're businesses, small businesses. And what happens to me a lot is that I come to a certain problem and I'm pretty sure that I know because I experienced similar projects and clients before that. And I come and I say, yeah, sure, I know what to do. But then something comes up and I'm like, oh my God, I did not think about this. I did not expect that. That's a really bad thing, to come and think that you know what the solution will be before you go and examine everything around it. And I think it's really important to have this learning mindset whenever you face a new problem, and puzzles help develop this. Because the only way to solve a puzzle is when you approach it, you don't know anything about it. The first thing your mind wants to do is to get the confidence that you know what's happening. And then your mind will tell you, oh, that's what you should do. This is the solution. Usually the first thing that comes into your mind is wrong. That's why it's a puzzle. In life, it can happen too. When you think that you're good at something and you approach with a solution in mind and you try it and it's a completely wrong solution. But when you approach something knowing that you can solve it, but you don't have the solution right now to it, then you start learning. You start asking questions, you start exploring and experiencing and feeling and sensing. And then you develop a new solution tailor-made to the new problem that you are facing right now. And this small change between a fixed mindset, oh, I know everything, to a learning mindset of I know pretty much, but I'm sure there's something that I'm not aware of. This is a really big change that for me personally, when I was in this fixed mindset, my life were in ruins. When I thought I knew everything, I didn't grow at all. But when now I'm in a learning mindset, you can also feel as a viewer how my videos develop because I embrace this change in learning, and even now I know that I'm only at like 1 or 2% of my full potential. And this is a great thing to embrace, and puzzles also help us develop this kind of thinking. There's something really interesting that happens when you experience the same problem time after time. This is something really personal, but I used to date really toxic women, okay? I used to like go out on dates with women that you don't even want to know what they did. Like it's really crazy, and I always ended up being really hurt afterwards. And I did this for a few times. It happened time after time after time after time until I understood that there's something wrong here. Like there's no way that I get into this pattern every time that ends up with me feeling hurt from the bottom of my heart. And I was so annoyed by this until I embraced the fact that I have a pattern that I'm not aware of. And this understanding that I'm inside the pattern right now helped me get out of this pattern and choose a new way for me to go. A few months after I did this, I met the love of my life. We now live together. As you can see, there's butterflies on top, and this is her painting, and she's amazing, and I couldn't ask for more. All of this is thanks to a small change, which arose from understanding patterns. Whenever you have a recurring problem, and it can go anywhere from career, not liking your boss time after time, changing jobs every few months, instability in anything, or just a problem that arises in really any field of life, sometimes being able to identify these patterns is the key to solving the problem. Because if we look at each individual behavior, sometimes it doesn't give us the whole picture. But when we look at the pattern that happens time after time, you will notice that things are actually going like in a step-by-step guide every single time, and you're not even aware of it. It's so scary, but it's so enlightening to know that we are driven by these patterns. Some of them we are content with and we feel like they favor us, but some of them actually ruin our life. Because of these patterns, we make really stupid decisions. And understanding which of them are good and which of them are bad, or more importantly, which of them makes us go forward and which of them pulls us back, is such an important thing. Because once we understand the patterns that pull us back, we can now start changing them. This is not advisable to do it on your own, but seeing these patterns from the first place can be achieved by solving a Rubik's Cube. Because in a Rubik's Cube, you are actually facing a really interesting challenge where you need to assemble a 3x3x3 cube. But to solve the cube itself, you need to understand the patterns that you see on the way. And every pattern has a specific algorithm that helps you solve this pattern and go to the next step. This is very visual, but the process that the mind goes through, I believe, is really similar to what it would be in facing patterns in logic and behavior and anything else. Of course, it comes with training, but it's a really interesting thing that can be developed by solving a lot of pattern-based puzzles. Before I go into the last one, make sure to let me know what did you learn from solving puzzles, or let me know your thoughts about anything I told you so far in this video. So the last one is the most basic one, but it's also very interesting and a really big theme and idea that it's really hard to put in words. The biggest actors, poets, videographers, creators are talking about this, and it's really hard to really understand how this is made or built, and that is creativity. It's such a complicated subject to understand creativity. But for me, creativity is when you take something and you take something else and you create something new. So creating something new from things that we already know. It can be either by combining or changing or taking something that exists and making something new out of it. And this skill, which is so difficult to explain, and I think the best way to learn creativity is by creating, but also creating solutions that are creative. And think about solution given any information that you are getting is also kind of creation. And this develops your creativity, because every single time from now on that you have a lot of information and a problem, a goal, a single simple goal you need to achieve with this given information, you are now able to take this and mix that and take 3 ounces of that and 3 grams of this drop of information. You combine them all and you have the solution. And that's a really interesting skill to develop thanks to solving puzzles. Like, who would think these would be the things you will develop by solving a puzzle in your spare time? And if you found this interesting or insightful and you would like to know more about puzzles, make sure to check this video and see a really interesting and creative puzzle, how it works and how to solve it.